Hello everyone, hope you all are safe and healthy. Now we'll start with the second chapter of secretarial practice, that is sources of corporate finance. In previous chapter we have learned what is meant by corporate finance. Now in this chapter we'll learn what are its sources. Sources means from where we can raise the capital. We all know that without finance none of the business organization is going to survive for long run. If you want to start the business, finance is required. If you want to modernize the business, if you want to expand the business, again the finance is required. So it is required at each and every stages of business organization or its working. There are many multinational companies like John Stock Company for which even finance is more required for its modernization and expansion. So it requires huge amount of capital. अब जॉन स्टॉक कंपनी बहुत बड़ी कंपनी है, मल्टीनेशनल लेवल पे डील करती है, इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे डील करती है. सो जनरली अपने को पता है कि उसको ऑपरेट करने के लिए अपने को बहुत सारा पैसा लगता है. ह्यूज अमाउंट ऑफ कैपिटल हैज़ बीन required, which it collects from the different sources. So in this chapter we will learn about different sources of capital, that is own capital and the borrowed capital. In own capital it is shares and the retained earning, and the sources of borrowed capital are debentures, acceptance of deposits, bonds, ADR, GDR, commercial bank, financial institutions and trade credit. Now for the session 2020-21, again from this chapter the topic which has been excluded are retained earning, financial institutions and trade credit. Sources of own capital. Now own capital means it is the capital which the company raised with the help of the owners, means that is the shareholders. ओनर्स या शेयर होल्डर्स के थ्रू अपन जो पैसे रेज करते हैं, इकट्ठा करते हैं, उसको बोलते हैं ओन कैपिटल और द ओनरशिप कैपिटल. Now this own capital is regarded as the permanent capital of the business because we are not returning the amount collected by way of shares to the shareholders during the lifetime of the company. Own capital, it can be raised in the form of shares or retained earning. So first we'll learn what is meant by shares. Here the shares does not mean related with that sharing, loving and all. And even in Hindi what we say शेर मतलब बब्बर शेर, टाइगर, लायन, ये वो नहीं है. ओके, here the shares means the part, हिस्सेदारी. According to the Companies Act 2013, Section 2, Subsection 84, share means a share in the share capital of a company and includes stock. मीन्स जो कंपनी का शेयर कैपिटल है, वो कैपिटल का जो एक पार्ट होता है, एक हिस्सा होता है, उसको अपन बोलते हैं शेयर्स. मीन्स द कैपिटल ऑफ द कंपनी मीन्स द अमाउंट विच हैज़ बीन इन्वेस्टेड इन द बिजनेस. Now this capital we are dividing into different number of parts or the units having the same face value or the prices, and each such part or the unit is known as shares. For example, if the initial capital of the company is 10 lakh, ये 10 लाख को अपन उसको डिफरेंट पार्ट्स में अगर डिवाइड करते हैं, इफ विल डिवाइड दिस 10 लाख इनटू डिफरेंट पार्ट्स हैविंग द इक्वल वैल्यू मीन्स इक्वल प्राइस ऑफ रुपीज सपोज 10, देन इफ 10 lakh डिवाइड बाय 10 इट मीन्स वी विल हैव द 1 lakh. So now from 1 to 1 lakh, 1, 2, 3, 4 like that up to 1 lakh, this one part is known as shares. And the person who purchased the shares of the company are known as the shareholders or the member of the company. So the total capital of the company which has been divided into smaller parts or the units having the equal face value or the price, and each such small part or the unit is known as shares. Now the features of shares. First, the meaning. Meaning is the same, that the smallest part of the total capital is known as the shares. Ownership. We know the person who purchased the shares of the company are known as the shareholders or the member or the owners of the company, as the company utilizes the amount of the shares till the company continues, means up to its lifetime. So that's why they are known as the owners of the company. Third, distinctive number. If we are holding the shares in an electronic form, that is dematerialization, so at that time it is necessary to give the distinct number to the shares for its identification. Fourth, evidence of title. Evidence of title of the shares is known as the share certificate. मीन्स अगर आपने कोई कंपनी के शेयर्स परचेज किए हैं तो आपके पास कुछ तो प्रूफ चाहिए कि आप वो कंपनी के शेयर होल्डर हो या कंपनी के ओनर्स हो. सो ये जो एविडेंस प्रोवाइड करते हैं, सो दैट इज़ द शेयर सर्टिफिकेट विच हैज़ बीन प्रोवाइडेड बाय द कंपनी अंडर इट्स कॉमन सील. इट इज़ एन डॉक्यूमेंट ऑफ टाइटल ऑफ ओनरशिप ऑफ शेयर्स. नेक्स्ट, value of shares. Generally, each share has a value expressed in terms of money of different categories. It may be face value, issue price, or the market value. Face value. Face value is written on the share certificate and mentioned in the memorandum of association, or simply we can say the amount which has been written on the shares. For example, simple, that is the MRP price. In each and every goods the MRP is written, so just like that is the face value of the shares which has been written on the shares, that is share certificate. Second, issue price. Issue price means the the shares which has been issued by the company at a particular price is known as issue price. Means जो वैल्यू में, जो प्राइस में कंपनी शेयर्स इशू कर रही है, बेच रही है, उसको बोलते हैं अपन इशू प्राइस. एंड थर्ड, मार्केट वैल्यू. नाउ दिस मार्केट वैल्यू इज जनरली डिटरमाइंड बाय द डिमांड एंड द सप्लाई फोर्स ऑफ शेयर मार्केट. मीन्स अगर कंपनी अच्छा प्रॉफिट अर्न कर रही है, रैंकिंग में है, तो ऑब्वियसली उसके शेयर्स के प्राइसेस बढ़ जाएंगे. या कोई कंपनी है जिसका प्रॉफिट कम हो गया, जो लॉस बियर कर रही है, जिसकी मार्केट वैल्यू डाउन हो गई, तो ऑब्वियसली उसके शेयर्स के भी वैल्यू डाउन हो जाएंगे. तो इस हिसाब से मार्केट वैल्यू असाइन होती है. मीन्स सिंपल, जो फिक्स प्राइस रहती है वो आपकी फेस वैल्यू रहती है. फॉर एग्जांपल अगर 10 रुपीज़ ये आपकी फिक्स प्राइस है कंपनी की पर शेयर की वैल्यू, तो ये होगी आपकी फेस वैल्यू. अगर ये 10 रुपये का शेयर कंपनी अगर बेच रही है 12 रुपये में, सो तो दिस 12 रुपीज़ इट इज़ एन इशू प्राइस. और बेचने के बाद जैसे जैसे मार्केट फ्लक्चुएट होगा, सपोज़ कंपनी ने 2 महीने पहले शेयर्स इशू किए एट 12 रुपीज़, और आज 2 महीने बाद अगर मार्केट वैल्यू अगर आप उसकी देखोगे, अगर 15 रुपीज़ हो गई है उसकी मार्केट वैल्यू, तो डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द डिमांड एंड द सप्लाई, सो दैट वुड बी योर मार्केट वैल्यू. नेक्स्ट, राइट्स. अब जैसे ये ओनर्स है शेयर होल्डर्स कंपनी के, दे आर द होल्डर, दे आर द मेंबर्स ऑफ द कंपनी, सो ऑब्वियसली दे हैव मेनी राइट्स, like right to receive the dividend, right to inspect the statutory books, right to attend the shareholders meeting, even they have the right to vote in the meeting. Next, income. Obviously the shareholders has invested the money by way of issue of shares in the company, so in return they should get something, so that is the part of the profit that is known as the dividend. Means return on investment on shares is known as the dividend. Next, transferability. As the shares of the companies are freely transferable, which has been provided in the article of association of the company. Only the public limited companies shares are freely transferable. In case of private limited company, there are certain restrictions regarding the transferability of shares. Next, property of shareholders. Property of shareholders, shares is a movable property of a shareholders. Means it can be easily moved from one place to another, that is it can be easily sold or purchased, means transferable. Next, kinds of shares. A company generally issues 2 kinds of shares, that is equity shares and the preference shares. Kinds of shares. As per section 43 of the Companies Act 2013, there are 2 kinds of shares, equity shares and preference shares. Equity shares. Equity shares are also known as the ordinary shares. They are those shares which do not have preferential rights regarding repayment of capital as well as fixed rate of dividend. Equity shareholders' capital are not repaid by the company during its lifetime. It will be repaid only at the time of winding up of the company. On the other hand, the rate of dividend on the equity shares fluctuate, means it depends upon the profit of the company. If the company earns more profit, more dividend will be paid. If the company earns less profit, less dividend will be paid. And if company does not earn any profit, no dividend will be paid to the equity shareholders, but they enjoy the voting right. So on that basis, there are two types of equity shares: equity shares with voting rights and equity shares with differential voting rights. Equity shares with normal voting rights are such shares which enjoy voting rights in proportion to their shareholdings. On the other hand, equity shares with differential voting rights have different rights regarding dividend, voting, and according to the Rule 4 of Companies Rules 2014. Second kind of shares, that is preference shares. Preference shares are those shares which have preferential rights regarding fixed rate of dividend as well as repayment of capital at the time of the winding up of the company. Means they get fixed rate of dividend and repayment of capital in the event of winding up of the company prior to equity shareholders, but they do not enjoy voting rights. Therefore, they are also known as the co-owners of the company. Now here we have completed the first part of the second chapter, that is sources of corporate finance, in which we have learned sources of finance, that is own capital, in which we learned shares, then features of shares, then kinds of shares. Thank you all. Have a good day.